What is up, everybody? Welcome to October 4th. As part of the Real Radar Radio's 31 Nights of Halloween series. Today is October 4th, and it is the 4th episode of the month. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's jump into this. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit uneasy, a little unclear. I have had a lot of congestion overnight, and I have no idea where it came from. I guess I slept with a fan, or I don't know. I have no idea, but mind me, excuse me. It's just kind of weird for me to kind of jump into this, but nonetheless, I made a promise. I made a solid promise that I was gonna do what I was going to do, make the best of it, make the most of it, and just power through. Because if I just stand by and stay idle, nothing will get done, nothing will get said, nothing's going to happen. I mean, if I just don't let anything happen, nothing's going to happen. And I wanted to share with you guys something today that I thought was pretty cool. And a lot of people may know this story, a lot of people may not. But I wanted to share with you guys a story of the Wailing Woman of San Benito. And I found a lot of interest in this story because it's close to home. It's a local story. It's filled with a lot of good insight about the Wailing Woman, and it's really cool to hear. And I hope you guys wouldn't mind me talking about it. And the Wailing Woman of San Benito is a really interesting story because it shares a lot of background and a lot of truth to the story. Because, like I said, there's some skeptics, there's some people out there that believe that the story is not true and authentic. There's some people that think that there's some misconstructions and things that just don't really make sense. So I figured, why not talk about it on the show? It'd be a great way to discuss it, open up the forum and open up the floor to a lot of people who may have questions about it later down the road. If you listen to the show all throughout the month of October and you have any questions or any updates to the story, feel free to get to me. I mean, you can send me a DM on Facebook, tweet me, poke me, whatever it's called, or you can just leave me a message on or comment on Instagram, and we'll hash it out. We'll discuss it. It'll be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm more than 100% sure that people will get a good kick out of this, and it'll be a good opportunity to kind of peel back the layer and get people invested in the story. So, here we go. The Wailing Woman of San Benito. So the history goes as listed. Straddling a jade green oxbow lake between Brownsville and Harlingen on U.S. Highway 77 and 83. San Benito occupies the very center of Cameron County. Like many communities in the Rio Grande Valley, the town has its origins in a tract of land apportioned by the Spanish crown, in this case the Concepcion de Cariticos land grant, awarded by King Charles IV to Bartolomé and Eugenio Fernandez in 1789. In the mid-19th century, Judge Stephen Powers provided legal services to the Fernandez family, receiving a sizable slice of the grant in payment. But upon his death in 1882, his son-in-laws, James Lundrum and Benjamin Hicks, were named administrators of this estate. 22 years later, they teamed up with railroad developer Sam Robertson to establish what would be called the San Benito Land and Water Company. In January 1907, the company carved its bit of the Cariticos grant up into lots and began selling with an eye towards founding a town. After the men had tried out a few names, an employee of Hicks named Rafael Moreno came up with San Benito, after combining Robert's first name, Sam, which he reduced to San, with Don Benito, a respectful Spanish version of Hicks's name, Benny. Several places in San Benito are purportedly haunted. One of the most popular is the old abandoned San Benito High School. Built in 1930, The school served briefly as a hospital during World War II. Locals swear that late at night the screams of the wounded and dying can be heard echoing down those empty halls. The campus was later renamed Bertha Cabasa Middle School before finally closing in 1998, and neighbors claim that lights flick on and off as a uniformed ghost patrols the rotting structure. At times, the gym is suddenly filled with the sounds of students playing basketball and laughing. Some have witnessed phantom of a little girl who died in the grounds wandering beneath the full moon, crying softly. Even those ghastly apparitions, however, pale in comparison to the wailing figure that haunts the broad and beautiful Oxbow Lake that ripples with deceptive serenity at the center of town. The legend of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, have been widely told in numerous variations. It is an ancient tale with roots in the belief of the pre-Columbian Najas, that collection of interrelated tribes now termed Aztecs. Two sorts of apparitions seem likely sources. First are the fierce spirits or divine women of mothers who died during childbirth, and the considered fallen warriors by the Aztecs. They are accompanied by the sun as it descended each day into the underworld, protecting from unattacking forces. Their single-minded aggression, however, made it dangerous for people to encounter them at crossroads at night, when they might appear to steal children or seduce men who would then drive them mad, but also evocate the weeping woman or the maiden wind, a type of specter that wandered at night, keening beneath the stars. It is possible that the modern Llorona legend has been influenced by a myth concerning the goddess who lived at the bottom of Lake Texcoco. The Aztecs believe appearing at night as a woman dressed in white, she was, according to the chronicles of the time, the harbinger of the conquest of Mexico. The woman's voice was reportedly heard crying out, "Oh, my children, their destruction has arrived, for we must soon depart." Other times the voice would cry in desperation, "My children, where shall I take you?" Excuse me. The Spanish conquest of Mexico added new nuances to the old myth. The Spanish conquistador Cortés was aided immensely by the native women, christened Donna Marina, also known as La Marinche. After her death, it was said that she was truly La Llorona, returning to grieve for having betrayed her own race by helping the foreigners to achieve domination of the Aztec Empire. So the legend goes that in the first decade of the 20th century, on the outskirts of the newly established town of San Benito, the poor Bautista family struggled as many had before and have since. The mother died giving birth to her sixth child, leaving the eldest daughter, Daphne, to help her father by taking on that role and raising their younger sisters and brother. She never once complained, and although she, of course, felt betrayed at times by the injustice of life, she seldom let her emotions distract her from her duties. She was genuinely a very good person, a bit short-tempered, but kind to her family and neighbors and generous with all. But despite her poverty, she displayed the haughty beauty of a princess. Daphne was light-skinned and hazel-eyed, with the longest, most luxurious hair of all the women in her neighborhood, and was, as a result, the envy of all of them. To help make ends meet, Daphne took on laundry duty, hauling loads of clothes to the family burrow down to the resaca of Los Fresnos, an oxbow lake with placid water that served as a sort of irrigation canal. Excuse me. It was on the bank of the resaca that she spotted one day by Lawrence Woods, a young Texas Ranger deployed to the Rio Grande Valley as part of a company defending against incursions from Mexico in the grips of the Revolutionary War. When this man laid eyes on the girl, he was smitten at once. He tried to exchange a few words with her, but she rejected his advances, compelled by much of her upbringing by the ethic and class divides in her community. The man was drawn away and waited for her to finish her labor. He then also followed her home and, heedless of the poverty she lived in, decided that she would be his wife, no matter who objected. He began courting her, and despite the initial reservations of her father, Don Eladio Batista, most of Daphne's family warmed to the idea of their betrothal, not only because the nuptials would improve their life a lot, but also because they genuinely liked Lawrence. Daphne's 13-year-old brother, Ovidio, had become obsessed with the ideas of Vilista guerrillas who had been carrying out raids to the valley. Sorry, excuse me. And the story trails off with Lawrence courting the woman to become his wife, who later became together to bear children once again together. And Lawrence have gone off to fight off in a war far away from Daphne, who was pregnant with children, who has had children with Lawrence previously before succumbing to this different type of, I guess, attitude or, aggression that became amongst them that made it so difficult for them to settle. And with Lawrence gone and with Daphne alone with the children, she somehow became too enthralled and lost her mind. And the story goes on to say that she had murdered her children. Excuse me. That she had drowned her children. And that, the rest is history. Things have, really summed up to be, a different type of outgoing and upbringing with this story. And it just showed that a lot of people misconstrue how the story goes. And I'm not saying that this story is the true story of La Llorona or the Weeping Woman, but there's many different variations. There's many different, versions and editions of it. And a lot of people know different stories, different, ways that this could have happened. Some say that it happened in the Rio Grande Valley. Some people say that it happened in California. Some people have said it happened in Mexico. And it's just, at this point, hearsay, it's all about preference and, the time. And sometimes it just doesn't meet sometimes. It's just a very open, conquest where a lot of people would say, hey, you know what? This story just does not make sense here. Or this story is not what we expected and it belongs somewhere else. But nonetheless, the story of the Weeping Woman is far beyond, crazy. It seems crazy to a lot of people because some people think that it just makes that much more sense to some because they think that the story goes on and it adds on to the fact that some people think that these stories, are more than just, folklore. And some people think that is just more than just a quick buck or a quick story to get out there. But I want to share with you guys another story from San Benito that just so happens to be more believable than the Weeping Woman. More believable than, what I had just read to you. More believable than what some people might think of the legend of La Llorona. It has nothing to do with La Llorona. It has nothing to do with, anything of that sort. I want to talk about, and I'm sure some people know about this, but the Forbidden San Benito Slide that still stands in a park somewhere in San Benito that supposedly you can't go down. Or you can't, manage to handle or something at a certain time of the night or, something. But San Benito, Texas can be the perfect spot for beachgoers. Moreover, you can find many attractions and things to do in the area. due to its proximity to the coast and South Padre Island. In the meantime, you can relax and check out some of the attractions of the city, museums, and the like, or visit the local playgrounds with your kids or friends. There is one such playground in La Paloma Park, although we strongly advise you from taking your kids to enjoy the slides, not unless you want them to feel the evil of the Nightmare Ghoul. So the Nightmare Ghoul will terrorize you if you go to the slide at night. One source, a man who prefers to be called Jeff, shared his story. A few years ago, we were on a long holiday. Just me and my girl, Jeff said. And the truth is, we got bored after a while, so we ended up walking around the city late into the night, just goofing around. We ended up at the slide. I couldn't tell you how we got there, he said, shaking his head. It was all a blur. And then his girlfriend dared him to go down the slide. Of course, he agreed. He said, it seemed like a fun thing to do, and the slide appeared sturdy enough to hold me. As he climbed the metal rails, he began to hear it. Children's laughter, he said. No, baby laughter. He couldn't tell where the baby laughter came from. There were no houses around, and the place wasn't deserted. Yet, with each step, it got louder. His girlfriend turned around looking for the source. I heard baby laughter near me, above my head. I almost thought the baby waited for me at the top of the slide. But when he reached the top, everything changed. The area previously illuminated by the moon and the street lamps in the distance went pitch black. The air went from hot and balmy to chilly and dry, and the baby laughter disappeared, but not before he heard a disappointing huff. At the top, he positioned himself to go down the slide and didn't hear anything, so he went down. But the way down only took a few seconds, he said. But they were the longest seconds of his life. He heard babies, more than one, crying in unison. At the bottom, he saw a blurry white shape. I thought I would hit it, but I just passed through it. It was so cold at the bottom that his breath came out in white puffs. The ghoul doesn't like it when you disturb her San Benito home. Back in the day, before San Benito was the populous city of today, there lived a family of 10, a mother, a father, and 8 children who needed food in their bellies and a roof over their heads. But the time was hard, and the family could barely scrape a living. When the father died, the mother could not keep their home. The mother could not feed the children, so one day all of them disappeared. They said she drowned them in the ocean. Others said that she stabbed them and buried them at the playground. They all agree on one thing. The woman was cursed to become a shadow of her former self, haunting playgrounds and watching happy kids at play, forever looking at what she took away from her own children. And whoever visits the Forbidden Slide in San Benito is said to pay the price for their actions in one way or another. And that was a story of the haunted slide in San Benito and La Paloma Park. If you ever get a chance to go check it out, I want to hear about it. I want to know about it. I want to know what it is that attracted you to, this this slide. I want to know what happened, and I want to know if there's anything that comes with it that anybody or some people found any interest in, because it just seems to be so much more investing into a story that some people think that may be true, that some people may not think that is really happening, or at the least bit, fictional or non-fictional. It just depends how you look at it. And it's not every day you hear stories about like local haunted attractions or haunted places that some people find to be very, I guess you could say, interesting, or some people might find that it actually happened in their town, or somewhere along the lines of still sane but understanding. And the one thing that I want to point out in all of this is that this story lends a lot of credibility to the history of the RGV and the history of everything down here. It's kind of crazy. I know that a lot of people would be very interested into knowing more about a continued history about a lot of things, a lot of haunted attractions and places that have occurred down here, but it's very rare. It's very hard to imagine anything else happening down here because you don't hear a lot about this, about these towns, about these places. It's very difficult because not a lot of people could say, hey, you know what, I've been there, or I know what he's talking about. Some people can, some people might know what it is that these stories are based of, and if they're true or not. I love reading these stories. I love, reading about these stories, reading about the history, because it makes me feel that, there is some sort of, story to be told, even if it is local, even if it is, somewhat, there's some credibility of truth to, what it is to be said. I've heard about the haunted, San Benito High School, and I've heard about, how that building is haunted. Used to be haunted. I don't know if it's still standing. I'm not too sure. I know Harlingen High School, Big Red Campus. I've heard stories. I've heard many stories. I used to work there. I used to go to school there. I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of years there, and I've heard that place was haunted. I heard that there was a football player that was killed. Not on campus. I heard there was a football player that was killed. Was shot through the chest by his own father, and there was a public funeral service held in the gymnasium of the high school. I have seen and heard. I've heard about and seen a tombstone that belongs to a student in one of the stairways in one of the downstairs hallways, stairway closets. We've discussed it. We've seen it. I've seen it. I've discussed it with a lot of people, and it's kind of weird. I think it's been recently moved. I'm not sure to where, but it's trippy. And there's a lot of things that people say that are haunted. They say if you go to the gym and you turn off the lights in the high school and you start clapping, and you stop clapping, you clap for like 5-6 seconds, then you stop clapping, somebody will clap back in the pitch dark. I have not tried this, and I don't think I'm going to try that because I like to think that, it might just be real. Because it's a huge gym. It's just, not knowing whether I want to hear clapping from somebody that I know that it's not in the gym because I was just in there. Or, maybe it's just the echo from my own claps that I just did. I'm not too sure. But I'm not sticking around to find out because, just based on the fact that I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, and I don't want to know any further. I mean, and the list goes on with haunted places, haunted schools, and it's just a big old sort of mess. But I want to thank you guys for listening to today's episode, October 4th. It's been a crazy amount of time that I spent getting all these shows together, because I wanted it to be somewhat, enjoyable, somewhat fun. And I think I did. I think I accomplished a lot, with the past 4 days. And it doesn't stop there. Episode 5 is coming out tomorrow. You guys will love it. I promise you that. I'll see you guys then. Take care. This is a Real Radar Radio Show.